AskReddit by 10wbit space. What's the funniest joke you've ever heard? Two nuns were riding their bikes to church. One says, "I've never come this way before." The other says, "It's the cobblestones." Two nuns are driving a tiny car through Transylvania at night. Suddenly a vampire lands on their car and starts clawing and biting at the windshield. Sister Daria, who's driving, says, "Oh no. Sister Maria, show him your cross." Sister Maria sighs, rolls down her window, leans out, and shouts, "Oh you. Fuck off." Two guys are robbing a liquor store, and as they are clearing the shelves, the first guy goes, "Is this whiskey?" The second guy replies, "Sure, but not as risky as robbing a bank." This is exactly the kind of stupid that brings me joy. A guy sees an advertisement in a pet shop window, "Talking centipede £100. The guy goes in and buys it. He gets home, opens the box and asks the centipede if he wants to go for a beer. The centipede doesn't answer, so the guy closes the lid, convinced he's been swindled. 30 minutes later he decides to try again. He raises his voice and shouts, "Do you want to go for a beer?" The centipede pokes his head out of the box and says, "Pipe down. I heard you the first time. I'm putting on my shoes." Nice. I haven't heard that one before. A salesman knocks on the door of a house and a little kid in a bathrobe with a cigar in one hand and a glass of scotch in the other answers the door. The salesman says, "Hey son, are your parents around?" The kid says, "What the fuck do you think?" This one is in the mental bank for uncle jokes. Two guys are walking their dogs. One guy says to the other guy, "We should stop in at the bar down there for a beer." His friend loves the idea but says that they won't get in with their dogs with them. The first dude says, "Follow my lead." They approach the bar. As the first man gets to the entrance, the bouncer is there who tells them plainly that he can't come in with the dog. The man, eyes closed, responds, "But this is my seeing eye dog." The bouncer grunts an okay and lets him in. The other guy sees it all play out and follows suit. He wanders over, eyes closed, and tries to go in. The bouncer says, "Okay, we don't allow dogs in here, so you'll have to leave." The guy responds, "But this is my seeing eye dog." The bouncer does a double take and says, "A chihuahua?" The man responds, "They gave me a fucking chihuahua." This one made me laugh. Two hunters are out in the woods when one of them collapses. He doesn't seem to be breathing and his eyes are glazed. The other guy whips out his phone and calls 911. When the operator answered, he breathlessly exclaims, "My friend is dead." "What do I do?" The operator says, "Calm down. I can help. First, let's make sure he's dead." There is a silence, then a shot is heard. Back on the phone, the guy says, "Okay, now what?" "That's so bad. Why am I laughing?" Mickey Mouse is having a nasty divorce with Minnie Mouse. Mickey spoke to the judge about the separation. "I'm sorry Mickey, but I can't legally separate you two on the grounds that Minnie is exceedingly silly." Mickey replied, "I didn't say she was exceedingly silly. I said that she's fucking goofy." This one goes exceptionally well if your Mickey impression is on point. Yesterday I got caught peeing in the pool. The lifeguard yelled at me so loudly I nearly fell in. Homer, arguing with Patty and Selma. Hey, everybody pees in the pool. Not from the diving board. A woman is having a funeral for her husband when a strange man walks in and sits up front. Towards the end of the ceremony he turns to the wife and asks, "Would you mind if I got up and said a word?" She tells him by all means, and he stands up and says plethora and sits back down. The wife turns to him and says, "Thanks. That means a lot." The man then looks at the wife and continues, "I'd like to add a word, if that's okay." She says, "Of course, that's fine," and he stands up, once again, only to say bargain, and sit back down. The wife wipes away a tear, touches him gently on the shoulder and says that meant a great deal. My grandfather has the heart of a lion, and a lifetime ban from the zoo. I hope to die peacefully in my sleep like my grandfather, unlike the passengers in his car. My wife just screamed, "Have you heard a single fucking thing I've been saying at me?" And I'm just like, well, that's a weird way to start a conversation. Fail, this one is great. Have you ever heard that joke about gaslighting? No? Yes, you have. Reminds me of a joke I like to tell while hiking and encouraging my companions to drink water. Have you ever heard that joke about dehydration? No? That's because dehydration isn't funny. Two priests are out driving one day when they get pulled over by a police officer. The cop approaches the priest's vehicle and says to the driver, "Sorry to pull you over, father, but we're looking for a couple of child molesters." The two priests look at each other for a few moments and have a few quiet words to each other. The driver turns back to the cop and says, "Alright officer, we'll do it." What's a reverse exorcism? It's when the devil tells the priest to get out of the child. What's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea? I've never had a garbanzo bean on my face before. I go with I wouldn't pay $20 to have a garbanzo bean in my mouth. Jesus said to John, "Come forth and receive eternal life." But John came fifth and won a toaster. Funny enough, of all the obscenely offensive jokes I've ever told, this is the only one that actually made someone mad. A woman walks into a library and approaches the librarian. The woman says, "I'm looking for a particular kid's book for my son, but I can't remember the name." The librarian says, "Okay, can you describe this for me?" The woman replies, "It's an adventure book about Pavlov's dog and Schrödinger's cat." The librarian thinks for a minute and says, It rings a bell, but I'm not sure if we have it or not." This one is clean and clever. I like it. A teenage boy is getting ready to take his girlfriend to the prom. First he goes to rent a tux, but there's a long tux line at the shop and it takes forever. Next, he has to get some flowers, so he heads over to the florist and there's a huge flower line there. He waits forever but eventually gets the flowers. Then he heads out to rent a limo. Unfortunately, there's a large limo line at the rental office, but he's patient and gets the job done. Finally, the day of the prom comes. The two are dancing happily and his girlfriend is having a great time. When the song is over, she asks him to get her some punch, so he heads over to the punch table and there's no punchline. This one actually made me laugh. Probably not the funniest joke I've ever heard, but my favorite science nerd joke. Heisenberg, Schrödinger, and Omar driving in a car when they get pulled over for speeding. When Heisenberg rolls down the window, the cop says, "Sir, do you have any idea how fast you were going?" Heisenberg replies, "No, but I know exactly where we are." The cop tells him, "You were going 15 over the speed limit," and Heisenberg says, "Great, now we're lost." The cop thinks this is suspicious, and decides to search the vehicle. When he opens the trunk, he finds a dead cat, and he exclaims, "Did you know there was a dead cat in here?" Schrödinger replies, "Well, I do now." The cop decides he's had enough and takes them both in, and he also gets home for resisting. Wasn't Callum with them in the car? I heard he ended up being charged. Two cannibals sat around a campfire. One said, "God, I hate my mother-in-law." His friend said, "Well then try the potatoes." Two cannibals come across the corpse of a dead clown. They decide to split it evenly. "You start at the head and I'll start at the toes, and we'll meet in the middle. Deal." 10 minutes into eating, one cannibal says to the other, "Wow, this is really good, how's your end?" To which the other replies, "I'm having a ball," and the first says, "Hey, slow down." A pirate walks into a bar with a steering wheel attached to the front of his belt. The bartender says, "Sir, why do you have that attached to your belt?" The pirate replies, "It's driven me nuts." Q. What did Cinderella say when she got to the ball? A. Gagging noises. What did Snow White say when she sat on Pinocchio's face? Tell a lie. Tell the truth. Tell the lie. Tell the truth. Two Olympians are chatting in the Olympic Village. One asks the other, "Are you a pole vaulter?" He says, "No, I'm German." "How did you know my name?" A cat and a dog are leading a caravan of pioneers through the old frontier. The cat was in charge of the front wagon. The dog was in charge of the tail wagon. Haha, cute. Blind hookers, man, you really gotta hand it to them. Say what you want about deaf people. Why doesn't Oedipus use foul language? He kisses his mother with that mouth.